Welcome to the podcast, A Pint with Seaniebee. I'm here in New York with a person I haven't seen for 5 years. Laura Fegley is a ad woman extraordinaire who's been in New York in the business for 20 years. She's worked at some of the big shops here, JWT, BBH, Cliff Freeman, and we're here to hear what Laura's learnt in her creative journey through life. So welcome, Laura.
Thanks.
I find when I open and put a microphone in front of my friends, I realise how little I know about them. And when you were coming today, I was going, "Oh yeah, Laura, great," and then I'm going, "What? I don't really know much about Laura." So that's probably good. So you can tell me. Where did you grow up? Where are you from?
I'm from Toledo, Ohio. So kind of industrial city. I was raised by a single mom who was putting herself through college when I was growing up.
Wow.
So I spent a lot of time in front of the television watching MASH reruns, and I was, I think, raised by the television a little bit.
So that was where you had the penchant for advertising, because you probably watched more advertisements as a kid than any other.
Yeah, it's funny. My friend Ted Rory and I have this conversation a lot.
Ted was on. Was with me.
Ted was also raised by his television, I think, and I think it spurred on our love of advertising.
And what was Toledo like back then? I know nothing really about Ohio.
It was a really good city to grow up in. I think it was it's a really good. It's really ethnically diverse. Like everybody's grandparents were from somewhere else, so that was it was definitely. I mean, when you're at school, people ask, "What are you?" and you know that means you're supposed to kind of
talk about where the ancestors come from.
Yeah.
Where did your?
I'm actually both my sides of the family have been here for like a zillion years. We're like
bona fide
or early, pillagers.
and so, what was from a schooling point of view? Were you creative when you were in school?
Yeah, I was creative when I was in school. It's funny. I think watching my I was in art classes and music classes. I was very into music. Jazz bands. I was in like all city jazz band, kind of all state marching bands, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Yes, total dork. I played the trombone.
Wow.
Total
Can you
dork.
still play it?
Yeah, it's in my guest bedroom. It's in my guest bedroom. No, it's not. No. It's like being a marathoner. You can't.
Really?
I can barely get anything out anymore.
That must be sad. Go and learn it again. I could just imagine you bring it into
trombone's one of those hard ones in a New York apartment.
Yeah,
that's very challenging for neighbors.
Saxophone's okay because you can sit out in the fire escape while
in a 1980s movie.
Yeah. And smoke a cigar.
It's hard to quietly play a trombone.
So you did a jazz trombone, yeah?
Yeah. So I was in high school. I got very into like jazz, and we'd all sit in the practice rooms during lunch and listen to jazz, and thought we were very cool, and we'd sneak off to jazz bars.
Did you smoke Gitan?
We did.
Smuggled them in from
there was this bar called Rusty's Jazz Cafe, kind of the other side of town, and which seemed to have no problem letting 16-year-olds go in and drink Manhattans because that's what we thought was cool to drink, and
Your fake ID.
No, they didn't even need a fake ID for Rusty's now.
No, just a sort of beret and you're in the jazz.
Yeah, I think there was
as long as you're this tall. How far did you go with the jazz?
I kept playing a little bit in college. I mean, once I went to college, it was definitely one of those things that if you weren't a music major, you just kept falling farther and farther behind if you weren't playing all the time. Really? I majored in English, so it was just one of the. After a while, it becomes apparent that like you can't keep up with everybody. But I miss. I guess
playing. It's like sport. Like I wanted to be a footballer when I was a kid, but like I make this kind of observation that when I was about 9, I realized I was never going to fulfill my dream.
Yeah.
And like, what happens to that kid?
I mean, I mean, and I think music's even more of a. You have to make that decision at a certain point that you probably want to. You're probably going to be poor for the rest of your life. Yeah. Probably teach in a high school somewhere, and that kind of wasn't ever that interesting to me.
So how did you then sort of move in? How did advertising get on your radar? Was it advertising, or what did you do first?
Honestly, I'm such a dork. It was advertising really early on. I think kind of watching my mother struggle so much as I was growing up, I was very always trying to find this balance of how can I do something that's kind of creatively fulfilling and where I can be sort of artistic, but also that it's a real business. Like this is something that I can actually like make a decent amount of money doing. It's funny now, once Facebook started getting big, all these people from high school started popping up again, and I assumed that, I wasn't by any means like top 10 in my class or anything special, and I didn't go to any special college or anything like that. So I assumed, but I got out, so I assumed that everybody else got out also.
But no.
They're all still there. I'm like, you can leave if you want. But
so would they be looking at you with a sense of envy at what you've achieved?
No, I think there's. I mean, I think probably a little bit of awe, but probably also a little bit of not understanding sort of my life, and I think a lot of people assume like living in New York is really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of things that I'm really proud of that I've done here, and just even living in New York for 20 years, like I'm proud of that.
True.
Like
I couldn't do it.
That's hard. Yeah.
I had to get out.
But I think the things that I'm proud of, not necessarily everybody I grew up with would be impressed with. They would just think I was an idiot.
Did you feel when you got to ad school that you were making this is what I'm doing?
Well, I mean, it was really hard to get to ad school. Actually, it was. I went to like state college. I went to Bowling Green State University, which total like, good school, but it's like run of the mill state college in Ohio, like nothing special. They didn't really they had like a marketing program, but it was kind of in the business school, so it kind of trains you to be an account person.
Yeah.
So I kind of figured out pretty early on I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know. I think there was one book. It's called How to Put Your Book Together and Get a Job in Advertising.
Okay.
That was this book that was the only thing that existed, and thank God that existed. So I was, after college, I kind of moved home, sitting there trying to figure out how to put together my book of fake ads.
So you were doing the thing where you take a product and say, I'll try and write an ad for that.
Yeah, I mean that's to get your first job, that's what you need to do. But
Yeah.
I was kind of working in a vacuum of my friends and my mom. You had to have a portfolio of fake ads, but the bar had started to get really high. And luckily at some point I got a hold of some kind of younger creative at Fallon at the time, which was, sort of bow down god of agencies at the time. This is like 1992.
Right.
Went out there, met with this guy who was great. He's like, saw some potential, thank God, and some stuff. But he was the one that told me about Portfolio Center, which was kind of the only, now there's a million ad schools, but that was kind of the only game in town at the time.
So did you use your fake ads to get into Portfolio Center?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So you had to use fake ads to get into school to make more fake ads. And then it was
more polished book.
And it was very daunting too, because you come out of college like just poor as shit. The thought of going and spending as much as I spent on college again to go to basically trade school.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically like going to learn like air conditioning repair, but it's with
and
ads.
how was your mother through all this? Was she supportive?
I think she just wanted to know that I wasn't going to live in her house forever. Even when I went to college, when I majored in English, that was very scandalous in my family, because my family, you go and you major in something that it's clear what you're going to go do with it. Like my mother has a finance degree.
Yes.
I think just now my family sort of like acknowledges that I have a real job, but they didn't quite believe for the longest time.
When you picked English, was that because you just love language, or you?
I love language. I also just I basically couldn't get a liberal arts degree was. Like my whole family would have disowned me. That was too that was too far.
Too vague.
That was too big.
Yeah.
So at least English was a little bit more specific, but I still got to take this really broad scope of classes.
What sort of English did you study? Was it modern or?
Oh, everything.
Everything.
It was everything. It was basically a liberal arts degree. I mean, the great thing about being an English major is all the other classes I had to take outside of, and reading a lot. But it did kind of ruin. It kind of ruined reading for me for like 5 years.
I had the same problem.
Because I was so used to like reading and like writing in the margins. It took me years to get away from like feeling.
I still do that.
I needed to
I
do
never did a degree at all. I remember the books that I read in school. They turned me off the writers because it was like school. I want to read books because I want to read the book.
Yeah, it kind of ruined something that I loved for me for a little while. I mean, I got over it, but I definitely felt kind of pressure to.
How did your end of ad school? What was the pressure like there? Because I assume everyone comes out at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it ended up being pretty good. I kind of ran out of money. I was waiting tables like full time when I was living in Atlanta, and I kind of ran out of money. So I kind of told them like I'm gonna leave now. I was there like 6 quarters. Normally you go 8, and they're like, okay, you're ready to leave. And I got like I kind of did the trip up and down the West Coast. I really wanted to go to San Francisco at the time, but my first 3 job offers kind of, within like a week were all in New York. So I had loved New York.
But you got 3 job offers.
Yeah, I got 3 job offers. Yeah, it was great. I got to like make a decision about which place I wanted to go. I ended up going to this place called Weiss Witten Stagliano, which does not exist anymore.
Okay.
But it was like a 40-person shop.
Good idea.
And it was good. I mean, it was because it was so small, like basically you know, as a creative team, you had your own accounts. Like my accounts were my accounts and nobody else worked on them.
Yeah.
Which kind of right out of the gate is pretty rare.
Mm-hmm.
It was also super stressful.
Did you have any mentors in there? People who really sort of took you under their wing and showed you the ropes, or was it sink or swim?
It was super sink or swim. I'm gonna be honest. I spent a lot of afternoons like crying in the bathroom.
No.
Like it was very stressful. It was very stressful.
What did you find was the hardest part? Just the time deadlines, or the?
I think it was
just being on your own in the water.
Yeah, I think it was sort of, if you weren't gonna crack it, nobody else was gonna do it. I think I choked a little bit.
Yeah.
I see it with a lot. I hate to make it like a woman-man thing, but I see it with, I'm not gonna call it a lack of confidence, but I think there's the lack of the ability to fake it as much as guys. I think guys can kind of fake it to make it, and women are very aware of all of our, you know, if we have any shortcomings, we will make ourselves acutely aware of them.
I would, you know, I think there's definitely a glass ceiling in the business, but I also think women are much better mentally, you know, their makeup is far better to run in agencies, particularly because I think empathy is such a huge thing. I couldn't get over the politics when I came here first. I mean, that was a long time after you were starting, because I'd lived all over the world but never done London and New York. So when I came to New York, it was like in a big job at JWT. We just passed each other in the night there. I think you were coming into JW. We'll come back to that. What happened then after
that place was very political. That was I'd always worked at small agencies up until then, and that was, I wasn't prepared for that level of politics. JWT.
Oh, JWT was terrible. But you know, to be fair, BBDO was similar. I've heard Ogilvy. I mean, the big
big places. It's funny, and I don't know if just certain places are just so big that they. Because I think so much of that comes from the tone that's set at the top about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And I don't know if just places that are that big, there's not the opportunity to have things cascade from the top. I went to BBH right after that, and that was my next staff job. I went freelance for a while, and then I went to BBH. And that was definitely that sort of just feeling of relief when I went there, because they're super nice, super respectful people.
Well, they have a reputation.
Honestly, want the best for you, but it's very much treat everybody the way you'd like to be treated. It was such a wave of relief when I went there. It was like, oh, thank God, this is like possible and still is here.
Nice.
And I got my first mentor there. I got my first mentor like after the age of 40.
Wow.
Which, you know, I got my
Who's that?
I'm a Cookson.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
But it's in the DNA of that company.
It's in the DNA of the company.
It's not in the DNA of JWT at all.
And
particularly not after Martin Sorrell bought. Oh, it used to be in Ogilvy's DNA.
Yeah.
It's not anymore. How did you feel like when you said to me that was quite revealing that you finally got a mentor in your 40s, which is very honest of you. Was it difficult not having someone that would?
It really was. I mean, it's funny. It's so many people I'd worked for that I'd learned from, you know, and you glean from them what to do, and also a lot of it's like what I shouldn't do. You see a lot of stuff from bosses and you're like, okay, don't do that. Yeah. There's a difference between sort of people teaching you things and people making that sort of kind of pointed acknowledgement that they see something in you and they're making you aware that they see something with you and they want to share knowledge with you. And Emma was the first person to do that. Like, you know, she would take me to lunch, and it was a lot of it. It's like, here's stuff that you're messing up on, that I've messed up on, and I want to see you fuck up less for a shorter period of time than I did with that. And I found
you paying that forward? Have you got a whole little pile of mentees under you?
Well, it's funny. It just made me incredibly aware that just even that acknowledgement, like just to know that I had been seen. Like was very powerful to me. Like it was very powerful, and it made me very much aware that, you know, there's been a million different creatives that have kind of come along that have worked for me that I've, you know, in my brain I'm like, well, they've got a lot of potential, and I'm encouraging them in my brain, but it doesn't quite make it out. You know, it's very Midwestern not to kind of you know vocalize sort of positive feelings about things. Don't want people to get big heads. You know,
Away from advertising, what? 20 years in New York, you weren't expecting that, were you?
No, I mean, like
What's
I said,
that been like?
You know, I really had wanted to move to San Francisco. And then the longer I was here, I would go out and visit friends on the West Coast and everything, and I like wasn't as into San Francisco anymore.
Right.
And it
Smells of wee.
Yeah, it does smell of wee.
Sorry, very Irish.
Yeah, no, Giuliani took care of our wee problem.
We have a wee problem.
And yeah, it became one of those, jobs would kind of come up in other cities, and it just became one of those, like, every time either something was going on personally for me here, like I had a boyfriend I wanted to stay for or whatever, but for the most part it was just when push came to shove and I was looking at moving to another city, I never liked those cities as much as I liked
Are you an East Village girl or Brooklyn or what's the...
I lived in the East Village. When I first moved here, I lived in Chelsea for 5 years, and then I lived in the East Village for 12 years. And then I lived in Brooklyn for 5-6 years.
So do you feel like, that do you want to get out, travel, or stay, or what? Do you see yourself here for another 10 years, or?
It's funny. So once I moved out to Brooklyn, I kind of started my kind of quest I moved out to Clinton Hill, which is just so, like the most beautiful neighborhood. Like I find it just like stunning. It's like super neighborhoody. It's very Sesame Street. Like there's one of everybody, Yeah. And it's architecturally it's gorgeous. Yeah. Kind of once I moved out there, I kind of stealthily started luring my friends out there. So I'm slowly building up my little like
coterie.
Yeah.
Great.
Out there, which is great because that's all you need is enough people to like go to brunch with, so you never need to leave your neighborhood.
Exactly. What would you say to your younger self in Ohio working on those fake ads to try and get into ad school? What would you say at this juncture, looking back?
I can't give myself the advice to be more confident because you kind of can't make yourself be confident. But I would give myself the advice to just know that one day I will be confident.
Yes. That
it's coming, it's in the mail.
Yes.
So just fake it until you make it and don't stress out about it too much.
Yeah.
I found it very stressful at the beginning. Like I found it very, very stressful, and it was really hard on myself. I don't know. I think
determination and care. I mean, like,
I think there's determination and care, but then if
giving a shit.
It's giving a shit, but if you combine giving a shit with kind of lack of confidence, that's a real tough stew.
Well, I mean, another way I would look at it, just from my experience here, was I found there were too many, excuse my Irish term here, gobshites. There were too many ad gobshites, American ad gobshites, who thought they knew it all and were had confidence to beat the band, but wouldn't be able to write their way out of a paper bag.
But that goes a long way.
It goes a long way for them, but again, that's part of the
a lot of those guys are making a lot more money than I am now, and I mean, a lot of them shake out in the wash, but
if you play the game,
that kind of confidence, and if you have like a modicum of talent, like you'll go a really long way. And
it's kind of sad, right?
Yeah, it's really sad. Well, but it also, I think that sort of beating myself up about sort of not being good enough and all that, it just made my first few years in advertising like not as fun as they should have been.
Right.
I mean, it's really hard. I mean, when you first start as a creative in advertising, I mean, your whole job as a creative in advertising is for people to tell you that your ideas aren't good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's very small percentage of your ideas that people are like, that's amazing, that's the one. So your whole job is basically getting rejected all the time. And, especially when you first start out, like your rejection rate is hopefully,
massive. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if just now people just like the ideas that I like.
Time.
They have to think that I've gotten enough seniority that now everybody just has to go along with them, and they're still shitty ideas. But when I was younger, it's like your hit rate's pretty low, so you're basically getting told constantly that your ideas aren't good. And I think especially if you're taking things personally, that's a tough first few years.
It's funny, like, again, as I said, you learn things on these chats, which I would never ever. I would say you were the most confident, one of the most confident with ad people that I knew. So
well, I mean, I'm more now, but I mean, it took a long time. I mean, I definitely had my moments.
How do you see the future of the business in terms of the speed at which we're operating on right now, and technology and all that? Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
I'm optimistic, but I'm a little pessimistic for the traditional agency structure. I mean, just like when digital came into line, agencies were really slow to figure out how to get that going. I mean, it's just now that all the agencies are up to speed and they can
just when they don't need to be able to do it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I worry about that again. I mean, I love agencies and all that they represent and the culture and the sort of, it's great to have this sort of third party entity that's not the brand that's able to, it's like anything where if you can get a little bit of perspective, you can probably see a brand better than brands can see themselves. So I think there's a real strong argument for agencies. Yeah. But now you're seeing more and more content being created by media companies and by media verticals, which is really interesting. But they're stealing a lot of ad agencies' lunches, but they're able to do that stuff kind of faster and more efficiently, and for they're not SAG signators, so they can do things at a much lower cost. And that's some of the most interesting stuff that brands are doing right now. So that's a little scary. And a lot of brands are also taking stuff in-house. And, again, I do think there's something to be said for having this kind of unbiased sort of look at your brand and be able to help see you clearly through things. But there's also a lot of, why would you need to deal with this sort of other building full of cranky people that are trying to build their portfolios and trying to build their agency reels, and hopefully they care about building your business, but they really care about building their business.
It's scary. I mean, I think I don't know where I'm at. I don't know whether I'm pessimistic or optimistic, but it's coming at us. It's coming at us
really fast. I think it's going to change. I think it's going to be a lot less kind of black and white how it all shakes out, how marketing for brands happens. I think there's going to be a lot of different ways it happens, and I'm wondering if it is going to go back to the days when NBC created all of the advertising for their advertisers. I mean, sponsored shows on Netflix.
The Googles and the back to basics idea. I think that could emerge here with creativity, which could be really good for creative people. I hope, and maybe planners are not telling you what consumers are saying in research and how they don't like your ad, and maybe it becomes more about standing out. Laura, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
To you. And
I feel like I was in therapy for.
Well, that's part of the idea. I love the way you're on. You're very honest. And anyway, Laura Fegley, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.